Evening, everybody.
Good evening from the Don Stripe Studio in Wesley Chapel, Florida. It's time for TBLOA's annual Rules, Changes, and Points of Emphasis webinar. Here's your host for tonight's training.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dave Elkis. I am president of TBLOA. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening for our 2026 Rules, Changes, and Points of Emphasis webinar. Steve Pafoudis, who is a member of the training committee, is joining me on the panel this evening. He'll be monitoring the chat for questions as we go through tonight's webinar. My goal is to have everybody out of here within the next half hour. So if I'm speaking a little too quickly, drop a question in the chat and we'll try and get it answered as quickly as we can. I'm having some minor technical
TBLO.
There we go. All right, awesome. So our agenda for tonight, we're going to go through some welcome items. We're going to get through the rules changes, the points of emphasis. I'll mention some frequently asked questions that we get, and then I'll open the floor to your questions. And we'll try and, like I said, we'll try and get you out of here in 30 minutes. All right, first up, our TBLOA training committee, Chief Trainer Tom Fitzsimons is busy coaching his Wharton girls tonight and is unable to join us. But our training committee here at TBLOA is 8 officials deep. 7 of us are college-rated officials. We take training and education very seriously within our organization. None of us get compensated for the countless hours we spend training other officials. We do it because we want to provide the best product for you out on the field. And selfishly, we want to work with better partners too. So we all try to make sure that that happens. To that end, TBLOA trains our officials a lot, especially preseason. We put them through 10 hours of preseason training over Zoom. We do another 2 hours at our in-person meeting, which was just last weekend. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get our guys up and running. What does that include? Well, every year our officials have to recertify. That includes the annual rules course, professional development, which encompasses the rules changes and a lot of the material you're going to get tonight. They also have to pass rules exams. In order to do youth games, they have to pass the USA Lacrosse Youth Rules exam. In order to do high school level tournament games, they have to pass the NFHS rules exam given by USA Lacrosse. And they're required to have a new field evaluation every 2 to 3 years to make sure that they're competent for the levels of play to which they're assigned. Now, for our high school coaches, our high school level officials have to go through yet another set of training. It's delivered through USA Lacrosse for the last couple of years. They make us watch a series of training videos, depending on how long we've been officiating. And then we have to pass the FHSAA rules exam, separate from the USA Lacrosse rules exam, to make sure that we are up to speed and know the rules with a certain level of proficiency. For those of you who are remotely interested, you can follow us on social media. TBLOA has social media accounts on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on YouTube, where you'll be able to find this video later this week. For those of your colleagues who may have missed it, they'll be able to attend or at least get the information. If they couldn't attend, they'll be able to watch it. Okay, now enough of the administrative stuff. Let's go through the real reason you're here, which are this year's rules changes. Some of the rule changes have to do with the field and equipment, and this is the first of those. This year, flexible pylons or cones need to be placed at the corner of the team area and the coaches area. So specifically right here and right here, whereas before we had cones here and here, now we have 4 cones at the substitution area. The idea being to keep players back in their space so that we know where they're supposed to be and they know where they're supposed to be. That will prevent players crowding the sidelines, pushing coaches out of the coaches area and onto the field, because we don't want players pushing the coaches onto the field. We don't want the coaches on the field. And this will help keep everybody in their designated spaces. Just a reminder that the coaches area extends from the edge of the substitution box to 5 yards inside the restraining line. The team area, however, does not go all the way to the edge of the substitution box. There's a 5-yard buffer zone. That's the reason for that second cone. So we want to make sure that the players give coaches room to coach without getting on the field and interfering with play.
Yeah, David,
Sir.
the diagram of the field is not showing up.
Oh,
So I see
okay.
the pages there, but not anything else.
Thank you for letting me know. Let's see if we can't rectify that quickly.
There you go. That works.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So one more time, the new cones here at this corner and at this corner. So instead of having 7 markings around the field, 1 at each corner, 1 at the midfield line, and 2 at the substitution box, we now have 9 because there are 4 at the substitution box. Next up, there's been a change to the rules on mouth guards, and that is that they are still absolutely required, but now they may be all white or all clear. Heretofore, those 2 colors, or lack of color, if you will, were never allowed. So a mouth guard may be all white, may be all clear this year. It may not have any adornments, attachments that serve no purpose. So what that means is the mouth guard you see on the bottom right that looks like a pacifier has been quite popular with some football players. NFHS and USA Lacrosse have made this illegal right now. No dice. The pacifier shape is fine, but the hook on the front can't be there. Similarly, a mouth guard that has a strap is perfectly fine so long as that strap is attached to a helmet. If the strap is not attached to the helmet, it becomes an illegal mouth guard. So let's make sure that if we've got a strap, let's get the kids to just fasten it to their helmet. That one's an easy one. Just a reminder, an illegal mouth guard or no mouth guard at all is a technical foul. This is an exception to the illegal equipment penalty, which is otherwise a 1-minute non-releasable foul. And now horn accessibility at the table area. There's always been a requirement that the home team provide a horn. And in the last several years, that requirement was satisfied so long as the scoreboard horn worked. That is now only the case if the button for activating the scoreboard horn is available to table personnel at the table. It can't be, I'll call the scoreboard guy up in the booth. That doesn't work anymore. So if you don't have one of these orange horns or whatever color you want, one of those boat horns at the table, because your scoreboard operator console is at the table, that's fine. Otherwise, the scoreboard horn doesn't count, and you must actually have a horn at the table so that table personnel can activate the horn as needed. There's a reminder that in addition to the working horn, you're required to have a scorebook, not a single sheet of paper, but a scorebook, and you have to keep track of scores for both teams, who scored, timeouts, penalties are required to be kept by the home team for both squads. A timing device, in case the scoreboard clock blows up, God forbid. Table. Don't have to have chairs, but you have to have a table. And the working horn. If you don't have one of those items, you will be penalized with an illegal procedure foul prior to the start of the game. Assuming there are no other fouls, that means you are going to lose the opening faceoff. That takes care of the equipment and field stuff. Let's move into timing. This change to the NFHS rules is not going to affect anybody on this call. FHSAA has their own policy for game interruption and how that's going to play out. But the NFHS has now said that in order for a suspended game to be a complete game, it has to go 3 quarters. If you're doing a high school game, the FHSAA is going to weigh in and decide whether the game is complete on a case-by-case basis. So this doesn't really matter for high school folks, and at youth, we don't use it anyway. So this rule change is not going to affect us here in Florida. On to play of the game. There's some clarifications for the players facing off. This is not a rule change. This is strictly a clarification. If players repeatedly need to be adjusted. And we do adjust players after we say down, but before we say set on the faceoff. If the same player is constantly needing to be readjusted in that he's not taking instruction and implementing that his next several times out there, officials have been instructed to simply call a delay of game and award the ball to his opponent. Practically, we've done that anyway, but now it's actually a directive. So if your faceoff guy after direction does not line up correctly, it's going to be a foul, and we're just going to award the ball to his opponent. There won't be a faceoff. Ideally, your faceoff guys take direction, and we don't have to worry about this one. There was a definition change to what constitutes a goal and what doesn't, which sounds silly, but used to be that if a goalkeeper had the ball in his cross, stuck the cross in his own net, and dropped the ball, it would not be a goal at high school or below. Because the definition said that it had to be a loose ball that crossed the plane of the goal. And they've changed that definition to align with the college definition, which basically is any loose ball over the goal line in the net. So if a goalie sticks his cross in the net and drops the ball inside the net, it's going to be a goal. If he'd ever dropped it outside and it rolled in, that was always a goal. But now if he drops it with his cross in the net, it will be a goal. Again, this is one of those where they're just trying to align the codes so that everything makes a little bit more sense and is a little more cohesive, and limits the changes between rule sets. Part of those changes, I'm sorry, wrong slide. The penalty for acting as a goalkeeper has changed. It is still illegal at high school and below for a non-goalkeeper to jump in the crease and try and block shots. If that same defender stands in front of the crease and blocks a shot, it's legal. If he backs up 6 inches and is now inside the crease and does it, it's a penalty. In years past, it's been a conduct foul for the first time a team does it, and an unsportsmanlike conduct foul for subsequent offenses. This year, it will be a personal foul for illegal equipment the first time it happens. That is a 1-minute non-releasable foul for the player who did it, because they are not a properly equipped goalkeeper. And although they have a chest protector, they don't have a throat protector. They want to make sure that kids aren't jumping in the cage without proper equipment. They see it as a safety issue. So they're ramping up the penalty for that to try and discourage defensemen from acting as goalkeepers. So again, this is a judgment call by the official. Can a defender still run through the crease? Absolutely. Can a defender stand in the crease? Yes. This is a perception by the official that the intent of the player is to block a shot or act as a goalkeeper. Does that mean that if a shot hits a defender while the defender is standing in the crease, it's a foul? Not necessarily. But if the defender positions himself right in front of the net and looks like he's trying to block a shot, he's probably trying to block a shot. It is a 1-minute non-releasable foul, whether the shot goes in or not. So because it's a personal foul, it's going to be time serving. So we want to make sure that we don't have this safety issue. Now, this is the rule change I thought was coming next, so forgive me. Goalies will no longer get 5 seconds to return to the crease on a restart. This is a big change. So if the goalkeeper leaves his crease, he does so at his own peril. Ball goes out of bounds, not going to get 5 seconds to get back. Goalie runs up a clear, turns it over, ball goes out of bounds, or there's a technical foul, not going to get 5 seconds to get back. Even if he drops his stick and says, look, goalkeeper doesn't have a stick. Once the goalkeeper leaves the crease, he's considered a field player for that purpose. So that's going to be an issue. If a goalkeeper's equipment breaks while he's outside the crease, we're going to let play continue, because it would be the same as if a field player's equipment broke. If we end up with a dead ball, however, with a piece of broken equipment, then we will address it during the dead ball. We won't restart without a fully equipped goalkeeper on the field. So this is a big change. I know a lot of your goalies chase shots out of bounds. Good practice. They can't just lollygag, get back. They got to get back. We're going to restart as quickly as we can. that may put them at a disadvantage if they choose to chase too far out. This brings the high school code in line with the college code, where they haven't had 5 seconds to restart in many, many years. At U10 and below, for my youth coaches who are on the call, U10 and U8 do not have quick restarts. Those goalies will be allowed 5 seconds to get back in. But at U12 and U14, they will not. They don't get 5 seconds to re-enter. There was a clarification to the holding penalty. They added the words hook, lift, and pin when it comes to using the cross against the body of an opponent. This does not change the penalty for holding. It does not change what holding actually is. There are legal holds and there are illegal holds. But this helps to define what an illegal hold is. If I hook, lift, or pin my opponent's body, then it can be called for a hold. Now, I can still do that with equal pressure. Legal holds involve the use of equal pressure, meaning or not more than equal pressure, as long as I'm not driving you backwards, right? I can hold you from going forwards, but I can't pull you back if I'm behind you, right? That hasn't changed, but this is primarily to help us adjudicate the crowbar maneuver, where a defender will take his cross and lift his opponent's off arm, picking it up in the air, often getting it off the cross, but continuing to drive into the opponent's armpit and putting the guy on his back. At which point they've either hooked or lifted their opponent. Again, pinning your opponent to the ground has been a hold for a long time, but they're just trying to make sure that we better understand that aspects of the crowbar are legal, some aspects of the crowbar may be illegal, and they want to help us adjudicate that. Another big rule change this year is that losing one's helmet results in a technical foul for illegal procedure. For the last several years, we have an immediate whistle when a player loses their helmet. That player is considered an injured player and must leave the field until the next dead ball. That part doesn't change. However, again, bringing the code in line with the NCAA code, if a player loses their helmet, it is a technical foul. If they lose their helmet as the result of illegal contact, it will never be a time-serving foul. So if a defender illegally contacts a player into the head or neck area, and that causes the helmet to become dislodged, the technical foul for losing the helmet just stops play. As any other technical foul would, it is not a time-serving foul. However, if the contact is the result of legal contact, well, if it's on the offense, it's going to be a turnover if they have possession of the ball. The ball's loose, it's going to be a turnover. If the legal contact by a defender causes the defender's helmet to come off, it's going to be a 30-second flag down, an immediate whistle because somebody lost their helmet, and a time-serving 30-second foul on that defender. That defender must go serve his penalty, but can't return to the field until the next dead ball, which may, not always, but may exceed the penalty time. What that means is he may or may not be able to release from the box when his penalty expires because he may not be eligible to return based on his injury status, not his penalty status. I expect that will be confusing the first couple of times it happens. Again, the next dead ball is basically two whistles, a whistle to restart play and a whistle to stop play. And if we haven't had that, that player can't return. As you well know, our game can go on for minutes without a whistle. If that happens in this situation, the penalty is killed. The ball never goes out of bounds. There hasn't been another stoppage. That player isn't eligible to return when his penalty expires, and one of his teammates will have to take his spot. But again, this is specifically designed so that players wear their helmets properly. Okay, this rule bubbles down all the way from high school all the way to U8. Now at U10 and U8, time-serving fouls are a little different. That player just has to come off the field and we substitute for him. Team doesn't play man down. But the same rule applies. it is effectively a technical foul. Yes, Steve.
If the player's helmet comes off to do an illegal contact, as you mentioned earlier, head to the neck, he still has to leave the field, correct?
He still has to leave the field, but he does not earn himself time in the box, correct?
Right. So anytime a helmet comes off, that player has to leave the field can only return after the next dead ball.
Cool.
And then there's a note about someone mentioned we have a lot of youth people on the call, so you
Yes,
just addressed some youth stuff.
Yeah, everything here that does not apply to youth I've mentioned. Most of those, that's going to be the 5 seconds restart on the goalie and the for U8 and U10. Technically, everybody's supposed to have a horn. We tend not to use horns much in youth, so that's really not as big a deal there. But by rule, yeah, everybody's supposed to have, home teams are supposed to provide a horn. I don't think we've ever stopped a youth game for not having a horn or penalized anybody in that regard. Do we have any, I don't see any more questions in the chat about helmets.
No.
Great. All right, let's move on. There was a change to a very esoteric rule about where we restart following penalties. There was, in general, if we have a penalty that occurs while the offensive team has possession in the attack area, we move it to the alley to restart, right? Whichever alley is closer, we move it laterally out into the alley to restart. There was one exception to that, which is if we had an out of bounds play on the end line that was followed by a dead ball foul on the defense, the ball would stay inside the attack area for the restart. That has been eliminated. So basically, if there's a time serving foul, we cannot have a restart in the attack area. It has to be in an alley. The only way the offense can now restart in the attack area is an out of bounds play on the end line. If we hit, whether before or after that out of bounds play, we have a live ball foul or a dead ball foul, the foul is going to get adjudicated and we are going to move the ball laterally to an alley to restart. I don't see any questions in the chat. Do we have any questions about these rule changes? Anybody want to throw anything into the chat? Okay, I'm not seeing anything there. I'm going to try and move on, kind of keep everybody on schedule. There have been a couple of editorial changes to the rule book. The first, there is now a signal for contact to the head or neck or a defenseless player. And it's this, we touch our hand to the side of our head. This means defenseless player. It also means contact to the head or neck, so that can be confusing. Just because an official does this doesn't mean it was contact to the head or neck. It could be a hit on a defenseless reliever. They use the same signal. Okay. And there was another clarification. We all know that if a player leaves his feet of his own volition, shoots, and ends up in the goal crease, that goal can't count no matter whether the ball goes in first or he lands first. If you leave your feet and end up in the crease, regardless of whether that contact was legal or illegal, if you've left your feet of your own volition, you can't score. Well, there was one exception that was sort of like, well, why isn't this specifically addressed if he didn't have possession of the ball before he jumped? So they made it very clear, leaving your feet, landing in the crease, you can't score, even if you catch the pass while you're in the air. So that was just a clarification they added in 419.1. And those are the two editorial changes this year in the rulebook. Next, I would like to move on to points of emphasis, unless there are any other questions about these.
I don't see any.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Okay, this year's points of emphasis. Properly wearing equipment. This seems to come up every year. When they started this emphasis a few years ago, first it was making sure that players wore their helmet correctly, and then it was making sure that the chin strap was on the chin. Yes, that is still a requirement. That arm pads are worn on the elbow. They're not tricep pads. They're technically elbow pads, and they must be worn as the manufacturer intended, which means mouth guards can't be fish hooked. They can't be just a chewing toy. They've got to be in the mouth protecting teeth. Again, elbow pads need to be on elbows. Helmets have to be on properly. Just because it doesn't come off doesn't mean it's on properly. Chin straps they should be tight. Really loose chin straps shouldn't be. Just because a kid can uncrank his helmet and pop it off doesn't mean it's being worn properly. It has to be, the chin strap needs to be tight so that helmet stays on to do its job. Okay. Um, Making sure that the next point of emphasis is making sure that officials are properly enforcing the personal foul for contact to the head or neck. Again, if contact starts in the body but then rides up into the neck, it's we call indirect contact. That's a 1 minute non-releasable foul. If the contact is direct via cross check or body check to the helmet, that is a minimum 2 minute non-releasable foul. Just remember, a slash to the head is still a slash. It is a 1 minute releasable foul. Just because it conks somebody on the helmet does not make it contact to the head or neck for locked in foul purposes. Right? When we talk about contact to the head or neck, we're generally talking about body checks and cross checks. Another point of emphasis is sportsmanship and the role of coaches, specifically a lot of trash talk around the country. They want to make sure that we're cranking down on that and making sure that we don't have trash talk escalating into something worse, that coaches are staying in the coaches box and staying off the field. Just a reminder, coaches are allowed on the field to warm up their goalie at halftime and to tend to an injured player. Huddles for timeouts should not happen on the field, but should happen on the sideline. But understanding that the coach's role in assuring good sportsmanship. And the last points of emphasis here is on pregame responsibilities of the officials, making sure that we're properly walking the field, looking for deficiencies in the field and the field markings, making sure that we're having our pregame meetings and certification meetings with head coaches and captains meetings. At the high school level, we generally don't do captains meetings at youth. Would anybody like me to expound further about points of emphasis? Great. So it's question time. If anybody has questions, I'm going to open up the floor for questions.